It's Monday, July the 7th. Word for you today: the importance of good thinking, part 1. What goes into our mind is important, and how we think depends on what we put into it. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 6 and 7. I'm going to read two different translations. One is the NIV, and the other one is the New King James. The NIV says, "Do not eat the food of a stingy man. Do not crave his delicacies, for he is the kind of man who is always thinking about the cost. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you." Okay, now, the New King James says, "Do not eat the bread of a miser," or a stingy man, "nor desire his delicacies." So far it's the same. Here's where it's different. "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you." Does the change in the way one version says it versus another, does that change the meaning of it? Well, it can if we just take it on face value, but if you really get into it and look, it's saying the same thing just in a different way. Have you ever known someone who tells you, go ahead and take as much as you want, but then you see them frowning as you help yourself? They kind of act like you're stealing from them. They told you, go ahead. The warning here is that the motive of the host is not consistent with his apparent good-heartedness. He says, yeah, go ahead, but he doesn't really mean go ahead. It's something just nice to be said. There are those who want to be good to you, but they don't want it to cost them anything. Let's just say Jill invites a friend, Jan, over. Jill invites Jan over, and Jill likes Jan and wants to be friends with Jan. Jill also invites Sally because she feels sorry for Sally. Sally doesn't have any friends. Well, Jan and Sally, the two invitees, start playing and having a good time together, and Jill feels left out. Well, now Jill is very angry at Sally. She felt sorry for Sally, but she didn't want Sally to be friends with Jan because she wanted to be friends with Jan. How many times you see when three kids get together, one gets left out? And so many times we want the good for somebody, but we don't want it to cost us anything. Have you ever met somebody and says, "Hey, how you doing?" A lot of us do that. What do we expect? We expect them to say fine and go on. But what happens when you say, "Hey, how are you doing?" and they tell you how they're doing, and it's not good, and it takes a long time for them to tell you how they're doing, and you're standing there thinking, I really don't want to know how you're doing. I just was being nice. Well, this Proverbs 23, 6 and 7 shows up in a lot of different ways. It's not just being invited to a dinner and then they don't want you to eat. It happens in a lot of ways in our life when we don't want to give of our time. We don't want to give our attention, our friends, our food, whatever. We want to be nice. We want to do the polite thing, but we really don't want it to cost us anything. So how can we avoid being that stingy person, that person that feels slighted because somebody's taken something that they offered, but they really didn't want you to take it? First of all, just be genuine. Be genuine. If you don't want to offer somebody something, don't offer it to them. But if you do, expect them to take it and expect to be generous. Second thing, when you offer something, offer it for their benefit and not your loss. In other words, when you offer something, say you've got a small sack of M&Ms, and you say to someone, "Hey, you want some?" and they take over half of them, just say, "You know what? Good. Maybe you probably needed those more than I did." If you don't want to share them, don't offer. But if you do, be willing to share. And then remember the two greatest commandments: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And when we offer things, if our mind is on their best good, not on me, makes a world of difference. In 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 8 through 11, there's a promise that says, you may be rich. You will be made rich in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion. Everything we have comes from God. He can take it away in an instant. Everything we have comes from him. And if everything we have comes from him and we are generous with others, does it not make sense that he's going to be even more generous with us? It's not a promise. But doesn't it make sense that he'll do that? I've seen that over and over and over. Some of the most generous people I know, they say you can't outgive God. They give and give and give, and you know what? God continues. He continues to bless them. It's kind of like at home. Your water faucet, you go over and get a glass of water, and say somebody else is there, and you want a glass of water, and you turn the water on and get them a glass of water. Are you worried that they're using up all your water? No, there's an endless supply. That's kind of like God. God has an endless supply of blessings for us. It's when we're stingy, when we're hesitant to share with others, that it could be cut off. The importance of good thinking. Do you want to have a stingy mind, or do you want to have a generous mind? Depends on your thinking towards other people and your relationship with God. Have a good day.